Our walls are solid. We've got the edges where they need to be to prevent issues with the Boolean. We now need to create the Boolean subtraction operand. An operand is an object that participates in a Boolean operation. And in this case, we want to have two operands, the walls, and then a bunch of boxes that are going to cut holes in those walls. We need to build those boxes up. We don't really need the ribbon anymore right now, so we can go ahead and hide that. Go to our Create panel and to Geometry, Standard Primitives, Box. And we want to go ahead and just draw these out. Maybe be in wireframe mode, make it a little bit easier to see. F3 to go to wireframe. And I've got some doors. So here's the front door. And I can actually just draw this out by snapping in the perspective viewport here. So just click and drag to create the footprint of the hole that we're going to cut. I want it to be 4 feet wide, and then drag upward, and I'm setting the height. And over on the right side, I can actually see the parameters. I'm going to make this 7 feet, and then click to finish that box, and then right-click to exit the tool. And let's take a look at this. We notice that the box is right on the ground plane. The Boolean will have issues if we have coincident polygons for the two operands. Right now, our walls object and this box are both sitting flat on the ground plane, and that means their faces are coincident, and that's going to cause issues with the Boolean. We want the cutter box to be a little bit below the floor. Let's look at this in a front or left viewport. It just needs to be pushed down a little bit. I'm going to move it down by 6 inches. Grab the Move tool. Here in the Transform Type In, it's got a Z position of 0. I'm going to give it a value of -6 and then a double quote for inches. Now it's moved down a bit so that we won't have that issue, but now the door hole is not tall enough. We want it to hit a full 7 feet up here. I'll go into the Modify panel and just increase that height up to 7 feet and 6 inches. All right, very good. Let's check this in the perspective view. F3 to go back to shaded mode. And we want that box to be completely interpenetrating the wall. All right, that looks pretty good. Now it's not really centered here. If we want, we can move that over. Turn off my snaps for a second, maybe use the S key and move that over. If I want it to be really precisely positioned, I can give it a numeric value here. Looks like 11 feet and 6 inches. Now I need more door holes. I've got a closet over here. So let's duplicate this box. Hold down the Shift key and drag and roughly position it. And just make it a copy. We don't really care about instancing here. Let's rotate it. We can grab the Rotate tool. And then just rotate it numerically is probably easiest. We'll set the Z rotation value to 90 degrees. And now it's turned. We can once again position it more precisely left to right if we want. The position forward and back here doesn't really matter. In other words, we would get the same result if the object were here versus here, as long as it's interpenetrating that wall. But left to right, maybe we could adjust that a bit, maybe push that over more towards the edge there. Very good. And we need one here for, we've got a storage area. And so let's duplicate this box again. Hold down Shift and drag that over. It's just a straight up copy. I want this one to be wider. We'll rotate that one again. We'll give it a Z rotation of 90 degrees. And then we've got length, width, and height. The width here is the thickness. The length is this dimension here. I'm going to set that length to 8 feet. It's going to cut a double door there and then position it. Feel our way through that. It looks like the X position should be about 10 feet. We'll go down to the X field here with the Move tool, set that to a value of 10. All right, so those are the doors. We also need the holes for the windows. So we can go to either side here and start to build that up. Once again, we can't really see where our windows are, so we can go into a see-through mode, select the object, right-click, and go to Object Properties and just temporarily make it see-through. And then build up a couple more boxes. Go to the Create menu, create a box, snap to the grid. This is also going to be 4 feet wide and about 3 feet deep. And then the height of the window here is going to be 4 feet as well. So I can see in my parameters in the lower right corner of the screen. That's the height. I've created that object. I can right-click to exit. It needs to be moved up to window sill height, and that's 36 inches. With the Move tool active, I can go down to the Z field here and type in 3, 6, and then a double quote symbol, and that's moved up to 36 inches. Cool, so that's one cutter for one window. We need identical ones here and also in the back there. So we can just duplicate or clone this one. And we may have issues with snapping. We want to make sure that this lines up well, but let's try it. If we hold down Shift and drag, looks like our snaps are working pretty well here. We're not having any problems. But if you do have problems, double check and make sure that the elevator, there you go. It actually did have an issue. So I got to do this another way. We'll need to go to the top viewport and do a 2.5D snap. Alt-W, go up to the top view. Alt-W again. And then up here, with the snaps, you'll see a 3. Hold down that icon and choose 2.5. And what will happen in 2.5D mode is we can snap to the X and Y axes of the current viewport, but in this case, we will not change the elevation of the object, so it'll stay at the same height. Hold down Shift and then drag over. And then notice again, we have an issue with snapping. So we can work around this though. When I release the mouse, it's not really snapping where I wanted it to, but it's really okay because the position here in the viewport Y-axis doesn't really matter. But if that did bug you, you could snap to vertices as well. We could go into our snaps, right-click, and enable Snap to Vertex, as well as grid points. Then when we go up here, you see when I move my cursor, I'm actually getting a little yellow cross as I move closer to a point. That means I'm snapping to a vertex. Now I can hold down Shift and drag over, and it snaps exactly to the grid intersection that I wanted. Let's make that an instance, and let's make 2 copies where it says number of copies. Increase that to 2 and click OK, and it's duplicated that other one and spaced it over by the same amount. Let's check our work in the perspective view. As I said, when we snap in 2.5D mode, it's not going to change the elevation. Cool, so we'll do the same for the other windows. Just select these. And really snapping's not that important now, but let's turn it back to 3D snaps and then disable the snaps completely. Hold down Shift and drag these down. Make them instances, and then just position them. Because again, the position here in this dimension doesn't matter as long as those cutters are completely interpenetrating the wall. All right, a lot of prep to set up a Boolean, but when we're done, it's going to be really cool because we will just in one step chop all these holes through. All right, we'll go back to our object properties for the walls, disable see-through mode, and then we can save our scene and move on to the next topic, which is actually creating the Boolean.